passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm attorneypreneur Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Have you ever felt like you have effed up? Well, today I am speaking to someone who knows all about F-ups. That's right. I am thrilled to be speaking with Jean Kuhn, the entrepreneur, coach, franchise owner, and author of F-ups, franchisee screw-ups that can cost you thousands. Jean has been self-employed since 1985, and in 2002 she bought her first franchise, which at the time was on the verge of bankruptcy. Within a year after, it was profitable. 4 years later, she bought another failing franchise, and within a year, had it profitable as well. Can you see the theme here? In addition to owning franchises, Jean now helps other franchisees run theirs better so they can make more profit. Wow, Jean, what a bio, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Well, we have 20 minutes today, and you've got so much I could talk about. So it was actually it was fun, but also difficult to prepare for this because, gosh, there's so many questions I want to ask you and so much ground to cover. But I'd like to start with how you got interested in franchising after 17 years of entrepreneurship without it.
Well, it's really funny because a girlfriend of mine owned the same franchise that I bought in the town that I live in. And she'd let me come over there and help her out. Isn't that funny? She'd let me help her out for free. And and it was fun. I was having fun because I was doing it for a couple hours at a time. So she told me that the franchise the same franchise was available in another town, and she's like, go look at it. So I went down and looked at it, and I could see the possibilities that I could see that the store was failing because when you walked in, it didn't look like there was anything to sell. And for some reason, I just knew what that store would take to make that profitable. So it was a pretty easy. Well,
how did you know? Tell me about that because that really is interesting. I don't know if you've ever thought about it this way, but most people who have been entrepreneurial, it's difficult to then go into a franchise system. I mean, not always, but it's difficult because as entrepreneurs, as true entrepreneurs, you want to create things, you want to do things, you want it to be in your own vision. You want to be the one that solves the problem as opposed to following somebody else's system. So, what was it about those businesses? Because I think it's instructive. What did you see that the other owner didn't see?
Well, part of it is the fact that I was an entrepreneur. I think that's what I saw that when I walked in the door. Well, first of all, when I walked by the store, I walked by it 2 or 3 times on the sidewalk because I was looking for one. Well, I'll just tell you, I was looking for a chocolate store, and I walked by it 2 or 3 times. I didn't look up at any signs because I'm thinking, it's supposed to be right here. And I thought it was a florist. And she had a table pushed up against the big front glass window filled with tons and tons of floral decorations. So I missed it the first 2 or 3 times. So number one is, if I thought it was a florist, how many other people walked by that store numerous times and thought it was a florist? And the second thing is when I finally walked in, when I say it didn't look like there was anything to buy, it really did not look like there was anything in that store to buy. So I could see, I could envision that you putting shelves across from the registers and filling that up and product in the back of the store and product on top of the candy cases. I could just see how many things needed to be done. Now, you made a very good point about saying that most entrepreneurs don't enjoy going into a franchise system. I had never been part of a franchise, so I didn't know what I could and couldn't do. I'm just like, okay, I'm buying this franchise, and this is what I'm going to do. And I did it all before the franchise even knew I did it.
Oh, well, that's a story in and of itself, but I'm curious what you knew. Let's take a step back here to when you bought it. So what did you know about franchising at the time? What was your thinking on franchising at the time before you bought it?
You know what? I knew nothing about franchising.
That's fascinating.
I didn't realize that they can control so much I didn't realize that they had a say in pretty much what you could and could not sell. Yeah, I knew zero about franchising.
Wow. And so well, it's kind of interesting because, in many respects, and I'm a big proponent of this, that if you can buy a business that already, even if it's, obviously this was not run well, right? I mean,
Right.
you have, it looks like a flower shop and it's a chocolate shop, not a good thing. You walk in,
Right.
there's no product. I mean, not a good thing. But if you can buy an existing business that already has most of the stuff in place, and you can see the one or two or three things that need to be changed, and you can successfully turn that around, I mean, that's a very, very good way to go about building a business, as opposed to starting from absolute scratch and trying to do it literally from the ground up and doing the entire build out and everything.
Right. Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I would never buy a franchise. Now, knowing what I know now, I would never buy and start a new business. Start with the build out and start with buying all the what do you call the furniture and everything that you need to put into a franchise. I would never do that again. No, I mean, not that I've done it before, but I would never do that, knowing how cheaply you can buy a struggling franchise.
Well, and sometimes
If
too,
you're willing to.
they're not even struggling that bad. It turns out to not be a good business for that owner. Maybe that owner didn't realize, wow, I really don't want to do this, and there's just a couple of tweaks along the way, and that can really be a phenomenal situation.
Well, and I think that probably because I had been working, or had worked not a lot, but a few hours at my other friend's chocolate shop, which I also patronized as a customer of hers, and saw what her store looked like compared to the store that I had walked into and saw nothing to buy. That was pretty easy for me to make that jump to, it's like, oh my gosh, even if I just did what she was doing, how could I not have a home run there?
So now, when you implemented some of the changes that you spoke about, did you see an immediate impact for the positive?
Immediately. And to kind of give you an idea, one of the things that we sell in our store is caramel apples. So when we were talking about her, she told me she's making 88 caramel apples a week and throwing half of them away. She couldn't go through 88 caramel apples every week. Immediately, the first thing I did was make more caramel apples, and then start promoting them. And I would say we're now, this time of year, I mean, last month in October, I think we did like 22,000 caramel apples last month.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, that was an immediate change for us.
Well, who doesn't love caramel apples? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
This time of year too in Chicago, right?
Right. Yeah, but it was just little things like that, just little product changes and shift the way you not only think about the product, but how you're going to market that product. And the ones, if I wasn't selling them right away to start with, I was most certainly taking them before I threw them away. I was taking them out and giving them to my fellow business owners and customers, and just giving them away rather than throwing them away.
Now, did this person have employees that was working?
She did.
Okay. Did you hold on to those employees, or talk to us about that process? Because I think everything you're talking about, just sharing your experience, is really insightful, especially for people who are just getting in the game, or for people who own a business and are really struggling with these kinds of things, or think about these things on a daily basis. Talk about your philosophy on that. And did you keep the employees that the previous owner had, or did you start fresh with your own?
I kept them because I also owned another business at the time, so I couldn't be there all the time. So I did keep them. Now, I don't recommend that at all, because it turns out when you have loyalty with your employees, which she did, then one of the employees immediately started stealing from me because she didn't have any connection with me whatsoever. She didn't feel any sort of loyalty to me. So obviously I let her go right away. But my other store, when I bought the second franchise, the previous owner had really done that poorly. She let them come to work and find us there. She'd never told them that they'd sold the store. And that whole staff, almost all of them, quit on me that day.
Wait a second. When you bought your second franchise, the previous owner didn't even tell the employees?
Yeah. Right, that they had sold the store.
Really?
Yeah, they came to work in the afternoon, and we were there. And
did you know that, or did you just
assume?
I did not know
that.
You just assumed that they knew.
Right. And they had that store was about 45, 50 minutes from my house, and the old owner lived in the same town as the store. So every night they would go over, they would close the registers, they would walk the cash deposits out. What I did is I put a safe in there because I wasn't going to come back to close the registers every night. We taught them how to do it, but they didn't feel safe not having somebody walk them out of a mall at night. We told them they don't have to take cash out of the store at night. So it was just, again, oh gosh, I highly recommend when you do that, you come in with your own staff right away.
Well, let me ask you, in this the franchise that you bought, did they have a pretty good operations manual or training manual to help when you brought on new hourly workers, or were you sort of recreating the wheel as you were going?
They have some things, but again, and this is just probably me. I don't think most people do this, but if they had a training manual, I wasn't looking at it because I had been training my own employees for so long. I don't even know how to answer that. Like I said, it was very hard for me to become a franchisee from the respect of being an entrepreneur to start with after I was in the system and already had made that decision.
This is a unique story, Gina. I knew it was going to be great talking with you, but this is truly unique. I love it. So basically you've got two turnarounds that you were effectively and able to do, which obviously speaks a lot to your talents. And now you work with other franchisees to help them with their franchises so they can sort of avoid the situation that your predecessor owners had to deal with. I'm curious, so what is the most common problem you see with franchise owners that you've dealt with?
Oh, a couple things. Number one, they do not invest in themselves. They think they buy this business in a box, and the franchise owner is going to, or the franchisor is going to teach them everything they need to know, and what they really teach them is how to be a really good manager. Because if they don't have any leadership qualities and they don't have any expertise in any sort of business, which I'm so thankful for the entrepreneurial background that I had. I think that's the number one problem and franchise owners just assume that they bought this franchise, the franchise owner at their week of training taught them everything that they needed to know, and now that they're just set to go out and make $1 billion.
So what do you recommend I think that's a really, really, really great point because, so many people falsely believe that it is a business in a box, and that drives me crazy when I hear that because it's anything but that. When you're buying, in the best case scenario, you're buying obviously a well-known brand, you're buying a good, efficient system and process, but you still got to run the business. I mean, there's nothing that can account for the day-to-day happenings of the business, and you still got to be in tune with everything that's going on in your community, and you still got to better yourself because so many franchise owners, this is their first foray into entrepreneurship, and there's so much to learn. I'm curious, in addition to going to, the annual meetings and so forth, which they're required to do, what kind of things have you done to better yourself that you've invested in that it would be instructive for others?
I've been involved in personal development since I was about 26 years old. So it's almost like I grew up with that to me, I go to conferences all the time. I'm constantly reading books that will help me be either a better marketer, a better leader, a better person, So I don't find a lot of other business owners doing that for themselves.
Do you think it's because they get too stuck in the day-to-day operations of their business that they just don't take the time or believe that they have the time to step away from it and actually?
That's it right there. Okay. They don't believe they have the time. Yeah.
Well, so how do you work with them to help them realize that they not only do have the time, but they have to make the time if they don't, and how that is going to be so instructive it's going to have a huge impact on whether or not they ultimately succeed or fail.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I have to kind of not sugarcoat that. So I have to tell them right out that these are mistakes that you're making. And to start with, I don't hit them right over the head with that. I actually will start with them helping them make more money. So I kind of go from this philosophy. Give them what they want and slip in what they need.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, because most people don't think they need personal development or they don't need some of to change the way they think. So, but I'm always pushing that agenda, but probably from, I don't want to say sneaky part, but I'm actually giving them what they need along with giving them what they want.
So let's talk about your book, which, I mean, what a title, F-Ups, Franchisee Screw-Ups. And I love that name. Who came up with that name?
Okay, Rick Butts, who is an author, and I think he is still a speaker. I had sent that to him and asked him if he would write a little blurb for that. And he called me out of the blue, and he's like, Jean, because the book was originally titled The 10 Biggest Mistakes That Franchise Owners Make That Can Cost Them Thousands. And he called me back and he said, Jean, I don't know how you feel about this, but the name of your book is F-Ups. And I'm like, I effing love it.
That is so, I mean, it's one of the best titles I've ever heard. I mean, it just totally captures your attention, which is obviously what a title's supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I went with it, because I wish I had been clever enough to think of that.
Well, why did you write the book, and what is because I've read the book, but tell somebody what they're going to get. And it's a quick read. It's a great read. There's no fluff to it. It just gets right into the mistakes that franchisees make and ways to avoid them, and things that all franchise owners need to be concerned about. But is that why you wrote the book? I guess I'm answering the question for you.
Well, that's exactly why I wrote it the way I wrote it, because when you're out there researching something, when you go to look for something, aren't you looking for you don't want to read through all the, like you said, fluff. You just want to know the answer to the problem you have. And that's why I wrote it. It's like, here's some mistakes that I made, but there's also a couple mistakes in there that I saw my fellow franchisees make. And if somebody else can learn from that and not make those mistakes that are going to cost them so much money, I mean, it cost me, there's so many mistakes I made. It cost me employees. It cost me money. It cost me time. And when I owned 2 businesses and then at one point 3 businesses, I just didn't have the time to be making more mistakes.
So tell me, I mean, what would you say are the top couple of mistakes that you've made, that you've learned the most from, and have in turn helped you become successful as well?
The number one mistake I made was thinking that I could do it all myself. Was to think that I could be behind the counter at my franchise, leave there at 4 o'clock, go to my other business, still manage to be a mom, do homework, make dinners, go grocery shopping, do the laundry, pay the bills, do the marketing, all of that. Make sure everybody had clean underwear. I thought I could do it all, and it turns out I'm not Superwoman.
Well, nobody is, but and that's a great point. How long did it take you to realize that?
It took me until I read the book E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And I'll tell you what, I think it was in one of the first couple chapters, and I read the line. It said, if you have a job and your job depends on you, it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic.
I love that. It's a great book.
That one line, I never read past that line. At that moment, I highlighted it, and I changed everything. I changed how I work in my business. I brought in another employee that I did not think I could afford, and I got myself out of my store. So I could start marketing and things like that.
Yeah, and I think, well, first of all, I love that book. I've had an opportunity to interview Michael Gerber, and I'm going to interview him again as well coming up. We just got to set the date, but fantastic. I mean, that book is probably the number one book that people refer to.
Yeah.
And it's just, going through with Sarah, the pie owner and everything like that. It's just such an instructive book. And I'm curious though, because once you make that decision to make that switch, I still think it's difficult to then continue to build that new habit. Did it take you a while to do that? Did it take you a while to build that muscle and that restraint that you really need to not put yourself back in the business? Because I think people intuitively understand that they need to do that, but they struggle actually doing it.
Well, while you were talking, I was thinking how many people read something in a book and they're like, oh yeah, that's so great, and they put the book aside and they never come back to the idea that they had. And like I said, when I shut the book that day I made the decision to start changing things for myself. And it's so funny because I had just read that maybe the night or two before, and a young woman walked into my store who was just fresh out of college looking for a job. And I hired her almost on the spot, and she turned out to be, it's almost like she was heaven sent. It's like, okay, God said, okay, I gave you this clue, Jean. Now you've got this clue that you can't do it all yourself. So now I'm going to send you an angel. And she worked with me for a very long time. She was completely amazing at what she did, and she allowed me that freedom and took very good care of my store and of my customers so that I could step away.
Isn't that funny how that works? Isn't that funny how that works? You know, when you open yourself up to new things, it seems like the pieces start to align, or the world starts to align. You know, I mean, it's just interesting. That happens over and over and over again, and it always seems to come from an uncomfortable position, right? Where you're trying to challenge yourself, you're trying to do something different, you're unsure. You probably thought, man, I don't have the money to do this, but you did it, and it made all the difference in the world.
Right, and that was the first thing I was thinking. Is like, oh my gosh, I can't really afford to bring a second person in here to work while I'm here. And then my next thought was, then get the heck out of there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, tell me, do you think, I mean, you've obviously got a lot of experience in the franchise space and working with other franchise owners, and do you just think some people are just not cut out to be franchise owners?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, some people aren't. And some people, I think they're cut out because they buy the franchise with the intention of not working in there, which I'm all for, but they don't ever take the time to learn the job, which how can they lead their employees if they don't really know what the job is?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you ever watch CBS Sunday Morning?
No.
Oh, you got to watch it. You watch 60 Minutes?
Once in a while.
Well, so CBS Sunday Morning, it's an hour and a half show on CBS, and it's like almost like it's miniature stories, just like 60 Minutes. And the reason I bring this up is because a couple of weeks ago they interviewed the CEO of McDonald's, Don Thompson, and he spoke about how he literally has worked every single job in a McDonald's. I mean, been with the business for 20 some years. I think started behind the cash register and literally can work every single component of the job. In fact, when they were doing the story, he I guess routinely will just pop into different McDonald's and just hop back in the kitchen and just start doing stuff, which I think goes to your point. I mean, you can't, that is the absolute recipe for disaster, is when you think you can just buy the business, not know anything about it, not know how to run it, and then think that you can actually lead an effective team and grow your business. It's not to say that you have to stay in those positions all the time, but you have to understand what it takes to work the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you were saying something, and I just had a thought, and it's kind of gone now, but about knowing the job.
Well, so there's another example. I mean, there's a guy, and I call him a kid. He's not a kid. He's about 23, 24 years old, but you know, he's just graduated college, and he actually had a consulting gig in Chicago, was doing well, that was a real good student, and decided, you know, I really want to get into the franchise space, and ultimately I want to own a number of franchise restaurants. Well, he had made a connection with a guy who happened to own about 40 successful franchise restaurants. And this guy was a little bit older, and now, you know, he's not in there running the operations, but he's more of from the investment perspective. Mm-hmm. And this kid said to him, listen, I want to do what you're doing. I want to have what you're having. What do I need to do? And the investor said, listen, if you're serious about this, you need to quit your job and you need to go work in one of these restaurants that you eventually want to own. You need to go start as a cashier and just work your way up. And this is a college-educated kid who's leaving a great position. And that's exactly what he did. And he moved to Indiana, moved in with his aunt and uncle, and got connected with me, and we've had coffee and whatnot. And I'm so impressed by that. And he literally started as a cashier and now is slowly working his way up, but all with the understanding that the only way he's going to eventually be a great owner and a great leader is to get in there and do the work and to understand everything that goes into running a business.
Absolutely. And that's how you also build the credibility with your team. You know, if I can manage my whole store from my house now, but it's because when I call over there and I talk to them, I know exactly what they should be doing, what they haven't done, and how to do it.
Yeah, no, there is no substitute. It's all. I was talking to somebody this morning. I had a coffee meeting, and this is a young financial advisor who's just he's been out there for about a year or so, but still young, trying to build up his client base, and something came up where we were talking, and he said something about working smarter versus harder, and I said, but the funny thing about that saying is, it's hard to work smarter. So it takes a lot of hard work to work smarter. And so there's no shortcuts to anything. But over time, after you've put in your time, you will realize what the smart cuts are as opposed to just doing and doing and doing. So really great stuff, Jean. I wish I'm going to have you back on at some point if you're willing to come back on, because I feel like we've just scratched the surface. But tell people about where they can get your book, where they can find you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay. Well, they can find me at Jean Kuhn, JeanKuhn.com. Simple way to find me. And they can get my book on Amazon, which is called F-Ups, Franchisee Screw-Ups. Gosh, thank you so much for having me today. It was so much fun talking to you.
Well, it's always...
I love to share this stuff with other people who understand franchises.
Well, and I love that you've just got the breadth of experience. I mean, you've got the franchise ownership, you've got the entrepreneurship background, you've got the coaching background, and you just really have immersed yourself. I highly recommend the book to the listeners. Like I said, it's a quick, but it's an excellent read, and it's no fluff, which I really, really like. So yeah, thank you, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Okay, sounds good. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.